Bolivar, and I'm running for Congress in Washington State's 3rd Congressional District. And I have with me Dr. Dalia Wasfi, who is a Jewish Iraqi American peace activist and an expert on Iraq. And I wanted to introduce her a little bit, tell her story a little bit, and ask her some questions about her experience and her family's experience in regards to Iraq today. So, Dalia, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And so before we get into anything, any of the questions, I'd like to ask you if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about your background and what brought you to visit Iraq as well.
Sure, and thanks for identifying me as an expert on Iraq. I was born in 1971 in New York. My dad is originally from Basra, Iraq, Iraq's 3rd largest city. He was born and raised there, went on to Baghdad University, where he did well enough to earn a government scholarship to do his graduate studies overseas. He came to the United States, and he met another graduate student, a nice Jewish girl from New York, who would become my mom. They got married in 1968, had my sister in 69, and I was born in 71. We lived in Iraq when I was little because after my dad finished his PhD, he had to pay back that government scholarship by teaching at Basra University for 5 years. So from 1972 to 1977, my immediate family was back and forth between Iraq and the United States. And we came back to the States in 77, always planning a return, but the next 30 years carried a great deal of war and occupation and suffering for the Iraqi people. Finally, after shock and awe in 2003, I decided I want to go back and see the family before things get any worse. So I went back for a 3-week trip in 2004 and a 3-month stay in 2006. And based on my experiences, I speak out today demanding immediate unconditional withdrawal of American forces from Iraq.
Now, there's a common thread that runs through a lot of discussions that I have seen. When I talk to people about us phasing out our troops from Iraq and bringing them home and not leaving a permanent occupying force there, very often the response that I get is, I don't think of us as occupiers, I think of us as liberators. And so what would the Iraqis' perspective of liberation versus occupation be?
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant how Americans over here perceive it. We should ask the people who are actually living under occupation. Certainly at the time of the invasion, because life was so difficult under the Ba'athist regime, if you were going to be politically active, you were basically taking your chances with your life, because it was very politically repressive. In addition to that, economic sanctions imposed by the United Nations, who were strong-armed by the United States and Great Britain, had left tremendous suffering with starvation and lack of medical care, which is contrary to the Geneva Conventions, but that was our policy. It was an average of 5,000 children dying every month from malnutrition, from easily treatable diseases that medications could not be obtained for. So at the time, with that suffering, people, the Iraqis, the sense I have is that they were seeking a change, thinking that any change could only be for the better. But as they say, be careful what you wish for. Because since the invasion, though people were, even my own family, they said their goodbyes, not knowing where the missiles would fall and who would live. They thought that for whoever survives, there will be a better life, and that has not come to pass. And it is so bad now, first from the lack of security, we failed to establish law and order, from the poorer services of electricity and access to potable water, from loss of a decent healthcare system, lack of education, and 50 to 70% unemployment. They now look back to the days under Saddam Hussein as the good old days. Not because, they're looking back with rose-colored glasses, but first and foremost, they had security. They could send their kids to school without worrying about them being killed in car bombs. And the chaos that has come to Iraq on the backs of the invaders has made their lives significantly worse. So no one perceives this as liberators today.
Right. Now, also with American tradition, we have the tradition of knowing that we liberated ourselves from Great Britain, that we took upon ourselves the responsibility of self-government. And so there's this assumption amongst Americans that since we did that, we therefore had the right to determine what form of government we had once we were liberated from the imperial Great Britain. And so sometimes it's difficult for Americans to to think about the birth of a new nation, in this case Iraq, in terms that are different. Because the assumption is, by many, that we liberated them under Saddam, from Saddam, and now we're going to have to transfer their own governance to themselves. And how does the Iraqi reconcile, or how quickly and how much they're going to be able to govern themselves?
Well, I think that at this point, and from the knowledge that I can get a hold of, and from the people I know who are living there, which by no means is a comprehensive overview of 26 million, but from the contacts I have in different parts of the country, it's the daily struggle of life that, and we can relate, because in this country, especially with the economy circling the drain, and in the last couple of weeks, the bailout that's gone through with government, we still continue with our daily lives, hoping that those that oversee what's happening are going to be taking care of our best interests. In my opinion, there's plenty of evidence that that's not the case, that it's mainly our policies are driven by greed and corporate profit. But so Iraqis are focusing on daily survival, daily, just performing the activities of daily life. What they know for sure is that their government has done nothing for them, nothing to provide security, nothing to improve the electricity and water services. And it's important to note that because this is a desert, many people rely on electricity to run a pump to bring water to their homes from a reservoir. Since the first Gulf War, when we bombed the electrical grids and the water sewage treatment plants, much of that water has been contaminated. So people, in addition to the water that comes to the house from the pump, they have to go buy potable water for drinking. It's very much, in the brief time I was there for 3 months, it's, your schedule revolves around when the electricity comes, and it's rolling blackouts. And for many places in Iraq, it's at most 2 hours of electricity a day. And this was a first world nation reduced to third world nation status through our economic policies. So things have only deteriorated with this government in office, and I don't think that there's any significant hope, whether people understand that they're taking instructions from the U.S. administrators or not. I think many people know that those in government in Iraq today, at least half of them came from exile. They did not suffer those years under the regime, and they came in because they collaborated with the U.S. and British administrations beforehand. So there's, I think, very little faith in that government at all.
Thank you. All right. So many people believe that we are doing good in Iraq, and they say that the media is simply just not telling us the good things that are happening, and they hear the stories from their soldier friends and from their sons who go over to Iraq to do good. So there's this perception in American culture that we are doing good there, and besides, we broke it, we bought it. And so what is the Iraqi perspective of the good things that we are doing there?
Through the long thousands of years of history of Iraq, which was Mesopotamia and the cradle of civilization, there have been many conquerors who have come seeking the riches of that region, and many invaders and who were ultimately kicked out of the region. We're not the first to do that, probably not the last, but Iraqis are fighting in that context of that long history. Now, we have trouble with that in this country because, first of all, our educational system needs help, and we barely have a concept of under 300 years of history. But we are also made to believe and want to believe that we are doing good. As a matter of fact, this is why the stories from the Bush administration kept changing on why we're going to invade Iraq. We were told that Iraq was responsible for what happened on September 11, 2001. That was a lie. We were told that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. That was a lie. We were told that they were going to use nuclear weapons against us in 45 minutes. That was a lie.